Hey, Douglas Scott McCarron again. Um, I want to talk about storming heaven. Um, Back when I was, what was it, probably the 80s, there was a book out called that. There's constant ideas about if I get the right power and I get the right, cues and the right ways to approach things, I can just waltz in heaven. And it's usually by one's own power. A lot of people believe this. Now, usually in the Bible, it says you can't do that. It's more like God breaks into history and does things, which is more my experience. But one of the things I noticed about that book was called Storming Heaven LSD and something. I used to take LSD back in the 70s, and so I started reading it. At the time, I didn't realize what was going on, but really what I was doing is I was storming my own internal imagination, which is where we usually live. The way I understand what's going on when we get born, there's kind of like this cocoon of feeling and energy that we live out of, and then we get given a name. You're Doug, hi Doug, Doug, Doug. After about, a while I start going, oh, I'm Doug. But, it's just a name my folks made up. So, then I have, what happens to me personally. I had a pretty emotionally traumatic childhood. Other people have wonderful childhoods. But the thing is that this bubble, I describe it as kind of like this energy bubble or an egg or something like that. But we live in it, things poke at it, we get upset at them poking, we attack back, or we get afraid, or we don't understand, or anything. And eventually we develop this understanding of the world, which at first I thought was based on words and opinions, but it's actually really more feelings and energy. And so when I took LSD and I stormed heaven, what I really did was I stormed this egg. The reason I say this is because I've described it several times, but I've had the experience of Doug McCarron going silent, and this part of me that I never even knew existed just woke up. And it was literally like waking up from a dream. But, storming heaven was more like, there seems to be like we live in this energy bubble, and then we live in the imagination, which gives all these feelings and emotions and energy, and it puts images in our mind and in our soul. And we just go around looking at this, and it has gazillions and gazillions of forms and ways of occurring. I kind of think of it as the thing that's in the way that keeps me from perceiving who I am in my real being. Other people I've read, it's kind of like, this is the everything is God method, that God created this big movie, this big play to come out, and it's got billions of ways of occurring, and it's all God playing with itself and looking at all these things and having fun, falling in love and having war and murdering itself and blowing up planets, and it's all just God entertaining God's self. I don't know. I'm just an old guy sitting in a chair here talking to you. But my experience was that the more I did that, the more I got involved with I say myself, but it's really that central feeling, that energy about how this is how the world is. This is the way things are. I know a woman who she's a part-time comedian, but she also makes her living basically selling herself to men and letting them beat her up because she wants to see just how dark and mean men can be. And I sit there and I go, I don't know, that doesn't seem like a great plan. But she seems to think it's a good plan. I get the feeling she's trying to be right about how horrible men are, and many of us are. But the problem with, storming heaven is staying in the whole, I'm the one with my power, my great spiritual depth, my great knowledge. Going in there is you just sort of end up back in this energy bubble. You aren't actually going into heaven, you're going into the thing that kind of separates you. Makes you distinct, but also makes you separated. It's one of the big things about people who try to be stars and they want to stand out from the crowd is when you want to stand outside the crowd, you're outside the crowd, you're on your own. You don't have any real connection with other human beings. The beginning of this idea for this video comes from one of my favorite YouTube videos. Or channels. It's called Esoterica with Dr. Justin Sledge. And he reads a lot of stuff about ancient languages and books and things like that and presents it. It's kind of interesting. He is one of the best people I know for describing what God is like in the Bible. And yet he doesn't believe in God. So he's kind of, for me, kind of leaves me with a big case of, huh? But he has this series going on now about Merkaba, mysticism and Judaism. I found out that in Galilee, Jesus wasn't the only one walking around performing miracles. There were several other people at the time, maybe more than several. Something was happening in Galilee back then. He's talked a bit about Paul's description of going up to the third heaven is very similar to the Merkaba mysticism. He's also pointed out that part of the problem that people get in Merkaba is that, we all have this dream about we're going to go to heaven and it's lovely and wonderful and cushy and we're all just sitting around having a great, wonderful, peaceful time. Here you got to go through endless purifications, and you go in there and the angels who are there don't particularly like you. And if you don't do things exactly the right way, they'll just destroy you. It's sounds more like Hades or the Inferno, Dante's Inferno, the way he's describing it. So there's all these traps and special code words and angels who could kill you with a blink of the eye and on and on and on. And yet he makes a very interesting point, which is if it's impossible for us to enter heaven and go to heaven, as they describe, behold the God on the throne in his central, wherever God sits on a throne. If that's totally impossible, why are all these passwords and gates and angels guarding them? Because it's kind of like if there's no way to get there, what's the point of having this? But I'm also hearing something in what he's describing. It's kind of similar to what I went through, which was the way I got peaceful and calm. For those you don't know, I used to be very dark, morose, vindictive, self-loathing, spiteful. Now I'm very calm and peaceful and self-loathing. And the thing I had to give up was Doug McCarron. Everything I held myself to be. I had to give up that cocoon. Which, when you're doing it, is extremely frightening and terrifying, and it's like it's being ripped off you. I mean, imagine everything you've ever known or believed, all your feelings, and the energy that holds that together being removed from you. And in that sense, there are angels killing you. It's like, you're dying. Everything I held myself to be was dying. You know, it says it in the New Testament that you have to die to be reborn. A lot of people think it's got a bunch of meanings, but to me it was like, I mean, literally in about 40 minutes, I went from this mean, vindictive, pissed off Doug to this very calm and peaceful, can really perceive a lot more Douglas sort of guy. And, in the Merkava thing, they're trying to sneak into heaven. They're like, sneaking along the walls and, saying the proper passwords and things like that to the various angels. And they kind of go, okay, we'll take you to the next level. But when you get into the sixth ring, there's 7 rings, God's in the 7th ring. When he's at the 6th ring, the angels there will just kill you even if you got all the right stuff. And in a way, that kind of reminds me of my passage, because everything you hold yourself to be, you have to die. In religion, when they talk about being selfless, they mean literally selfless. You don't have a self. Doesn't mean you give to the poor or anything like that. It means everything you think you are ceases to be, and then this other part just wakes up. But if you're going to try and do it with your own force, I mean, my experience is something came and shifted something in me. I didn't even know this was even possible. There's several major shifts in my life. But I was also meditating and praying and wanting to know why I was so upset and was there any possibility to let go of it. And over the years, yeah, it happened. But I couldn't storm heaven. It was more like I became God's friend. If you're walking into someone's house uninvited, you're more than likely going to get a less than positive response, a reaction from the person who lives in that house. If you try to storm heaven, well, God's like, well, who invited you? I don't know if that's true. I'm not God. I don't know how God would respond. But my attitude has been more along the lines of, I'm just going to come up and knock on the door and, hey, can I come in? I'd like to be friends with God. And amazingly, this weird energy came in and altered me. I know, like a lot of people don't believe in God, and that's fine. But you have the atheist bubble, and they sit there and talk to themselves, and you have the religious bubble, and that all talks to itself. Everybody's got these bubbles, and no matter what these bubbles are, these million, 100,000, bazillion types of variations of bubbles and music and things you can do with each other in bed and political things and food you can eat and on and on. It's all fine, but it's not the one sitting at the center. And at some point, you kind of have to let go of all that. Like I've heard it said that we all come here with a purpose and we have to fulfill that purpose. It seems to me what you really need to do is just kind of say, I'm going to let that go. And you just let it go, and this other part just wakes up and you become calm and peaceful. If you want to go storming into heaven with your force and power and my strength, and well, you probably aren't going to get very far, because you're just going to run around inside your little bubble. This kind of reminds me, one of the things that's always amused me about ancient history is, the men sitting there going, I fight war, I face death, I'm dominant, you woman, you don't have to worry about these things. And I'm sitting there going, every time a woman gets pregnant back then, she had like a 50% chance of dying when she gave birth. A lot of women had 18, 20 kids. Now you tell me, who do you think faced death more? Who had more strength? But anyway, all that. Well, that's just the bubble talking itself about how great and wonderful it is, and it's godlike, and it's the very thing that keeps you from actually letting go of it and bumping into the real thing. So anyway, not that anybody asked, but I strongly encourage you to try storming heaven. Go and knock on the door as a friend. All right, thank you. If you want to donate anything, the stuff's along the bottom. And if you want to do it another way, as I always say, if you know somebody who needs some help or needs some food, or a woman who needs some diapers for her kids, go give them some help. All right. Thank you. Don't go storming heaven. Don't storm your neighbor's house either. Might not get a good reaction.